Big news today coming out of the Philadelphia Flyers organization. They fired general manager Ron Hextall. So in today's video, we're going to discuss that decision to move on from Hextall and take a look at his record as general manager over the past 5 seasons. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, we have some breaking, somewhat shocking news out of the Philadelphia Flyers organization. General manager Ron Hextall has been fired. We received this breaking news in a statement here from Flyers president Paul Holmgren here just a short time ago. Now, as we know, the Flyers are not having a terrific season. They just suffered an embarrassing shutout loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs here on Saturday night in JVR's return to Toronto. This team has certainly had their issues defensively as well as in the net now for a long period of time. I mean, you could probably make the argument that Ron Hextall was really the last solid goaltender this franchise has had for an extended period of time at least. I mean, they've gone through a lot of goaltenders in the past 20, 25 years, and as many times as they thought they had their guy, there's just been numerous things that have happened that they haven't had a long-term stability in the crease, like I said, really since Ron Hextall was in the net himself all that time ago. Now I'm going to read you the statement here from Flyers president Paul Holmgren regarding this decision, and I'll put this up on the screen. The Flyers organization has decided to relieve Ron Hextall of his duties as Executive Vice President and General Manager. We thank Ron for his many significant contributions, but it has become clear that we no longer share the same philosophical approach concerning the direction of the team. In light of these differences, we feel it's in the organization's best interest to make a change effective immediately. I have already begun a process to identify and select our next general manager, which we hope to complete as soon as possible. Flyers President Paul Holmgren. So as we can tell from this statement here, it's not just a case of the team not achieving the results they're looking for. It's where they're going and how they're getting there, as Holmgren has indicated that they're not sharing the same philosophical direction of the team. As we know, Ron Hextall can be a very stubborn guy, and he certainly had to draft and develop approach here. Certainly preached a lot of patience during his time as general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers. But as much as he's trying to be patient, this organization wants to win, and as soon as they keep taking steps forward, they end up taking steps back. This team is one of the streakiest teams here in recent years. We've seen them have massive losing streaks. We've also seen them have incredibly long winning streaks as well. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, how in one season they can be such a yin and yang type of team. So obviously, I really honestly thought that there would be changes coming in Philadelphia. The fact that some changes have been made, I don't find shocking, as we've discussed here with other videos like we did earlier today with the trade last night between Arizona and Chicago, other coaches being let go, etc. When the results are not there, teams make changes. It's a business. They want to win, and that's just how it is. So with Ron Hextall, though, I really thought it might be him taking a new approach here and getting rid of Coach Dave Hextall and maybe trying to save himself some time, go in a new coaching direction, maybe make a trade or two, and see what he can do himself to kind of bolster this team before he himself was the odd man out. I mean, Hextall, I thought overall didn't do too bad of a job as a general manager. He's first hired back in 2014 after coming back to the organization after working with the LA Kings for an extended time as well. He was certainly regarded as one of the better assistant general managers around the NHL. Certainly earned his opportunity with the Flyers. And like I said, really for the most part, I think you could take an argument here that he didn't do too bad of a job. But the big thing that's on his resume that was never completed is to get some solid, consistent net mining in the Flyers organization during his tenure here as GM. Now let's take a quick look here at his record of drafting and trading during his time as GM with the Philadelphia Flyers. Back in 2015, he traded defenseman Braden Coburn from the Flyers to the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for Radko Gudas. I think that trade's worked out relatively well. I mean, Gudas is certainly a hard-nosed defender. Coburn's had a pretty decent time in Tampa. I think you could probably say that was a fairly even trade. His next big deal came with the LA Kings, where he shipped out Vinny Lecavalier and Luke Schenn, who were not on the greatest contracts as well. Lecavalier, certainly after he got bought out from Tampa, was given a pretty generous contract from the Flyers, and he was certainly really not earning that at the end of his time there as well. So really, he kind of did Lecavalier a favor, gave him a chance to go to LA, see if he could kind of get any magic left here, and then Lecavalier ended up retiring after that season. In return, the Flyers received forward Jordan Wheel in the third-round selection. So overall, considering Lecavalier and Schenn were not really performing all that well to get those contracts off the books, I'm certainly going to say that was a decent move for the Flyers as well. One of the more significant trades he made in December 2017, trading Braden Schenn to the St. Louis Blues. In return, he received Euro Laterra and a first-round pick. That pick was then used to draft Morgan Frost. And we know Laterra hasn't really worked out in Philadelphia, a variety of issues going on there. And then you've got Morgan Frost, who does look like a pretty solid grade A prospect in junior, but hasn't really, had that chance to shine in the NHL yet. So we'll see. The jury's still out on if that's a good selection, but all indications are he's a good prospect and should develop into a pretty decent NHL player. So I guess depending on how Frost develops, will really kind of tell the tale and how good that deal is longer term. But I do understand that trade as well, considering they had just drafted Nolan Patrick. They already had Sean Couturier, Claude Giroux. They had enough guys that could play center ice. So I could understand maybe the moving Schenn. Just obviously Schenn goes to St. Louis that first year and had a tremendous season, really boosting his stats and really clicked well with Jaden Schwartz. So I guess from that perspective, it looked like not so good, but I do understand the rationale behind it. And overall, long term, if Frost develops, it still could turn out to be a pretty decent trade for the Flyers. Quick look at some of his notable free agent signings here over the past 4 or 5 seasons. The big ones, though, if you take a look, are goaltenders, which is the big question mark hanging over this team for so many years now. In 2015, he signed Michael Neuwirth as a free agent. In 2017, he signed Brian Elliott. And of course, last year, he signed JVR to a big 7-year contract as well. So obviously, bringing JVR back at this point still looks like a decent move. JVR is still young enough and has produced enough goals that very well could turn out to be a pretty decent contract long term if he can keep up his play like he was playing the last few years with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's widely suspected that Wayne Simmonds likely doesn't return next year. He either departs via free agency or maybe he's traded throughout this season before the deadline as well, because JVR and Simmonds are kind of playing a similar type of role, the net front presence on the power play, etc. They're kind of impacting each other's ice time. Even though Simmonds had a pretty decent start while JVR was injured, and now he's kind of cooled off too. So wouldn't be a big shocker to see Wayne Simmonds find his way out of Philadelphia sometime by the end of this season as well. So we'll see, but obviously the JVR contract at this point doesn't look too bad. But the other ones before that, the goaltenders he's brought in just hasn't worked out. I mean, they've also had a ton of goaltending injuries. I mean, look at last year. He had to make a trade and pick up Peter Mrazek. Didn't have to necessarily go for Mrazek, but he had to bring somebody in because everybody was dropping like flies in that crease. I mean, obviously, he did draft Carter Hart, who does look to be the goaltender of the future for this franchise. But even Carter Hart, as solid as his junior career was, he's one of the best junior goaltenders in really quite some time in the Canadian Junior League, in my opinion. But he's got off to a pretty shaky start so far in the American Hockey League, and it's really hard to say when he's going to be ready to really take on a full-time NHL job. I mean, a lot of goaltenders, as we know, are late bloomers. They take longer to develop. They're quite often, 23, 24, 25 before they become regular NHL players. So it's really hard to say when Carter Hart becomes a regular for the Philadelphia Flyers and if that's going to happen. Will he turn into be the goaltender that they need him to be? But even then, like I said, that could be a few years away, and they need some kind of stopgap in between here that's going to get the job done. Elliott Neuwirth can't seem to stay off injured reserve. They picked up Calvin Pickard, and he hasn't done the greatest job either. So really, there's a lot of questions around this team, but the big one is in the net for sure. If they can get some solid goaltending and maybe improve their defense a little bit, I do fully think that they have the capability of being a pretty solid team. Their forward group is solid. It's really the back end that they really need to improve. So personally, on Ron Hextall's resume, the one big thing, like I said, that's missing is the inability to get some consistent, solid goaltending and find that right goaltender to come in and give that team what they need. So that's, it is on the general manager for not being able to find that. So we'll see here. It's unfortunate. Now, as far as who their next general manager could be, it's really hard to say. This is not a common thing that we see. General managers typically are let go more so after the season ends, and teams will take time, before the draft and free agency kicks in to kind of get their new staff in place. It's not often you see GMs fired during the season, especially where the coach wasn't let go either. Now, from my understanding here, the remaining of Hextall staff will remain in place. They do have Dean Lombardi working with the Flyers organization in a different capacity here. So he's obviously a former general manager of the LA Kings. He's got a Stanley Cup ring on his hand. So maybe could Lombardi possibly be that guy, at least on an interim basis. They could certainly go that route where he's already working with the Flyers. But we'll see where Paul Holmgren decides to go here. But he needs to find a guy who's going to be able to address that goaltending situation and make a move here to get it situated here long term. So give me your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section here on the Flyers firing Ron Hextall. Are you finding this shocking news? Are you surprised Hextall went before Hackstall? I know that was my initial reaction. When I first read the news, I said, does that say Hextall or Hackstall? I was like, no, Ron Hextall has been fired. I certainly was surprised, but let me know what you think and we'll continue the conversation down in the comment section. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.